up, everyone? I was just in the basement doing some things. So today we're going to look at the SPTK38G. SPTK38G, the SPTK38G. I had to practice that because it's a long, convoluted name. Okay, so yeah. This review is brought to you by my lovely Patreon. I was able to purchase one of these in order to review. Now I have two, because the first one, there were some issues with the motor, and so the manufacturer wanted to send me an updated one, which is this one right here. So I did pay for one. I also received one for free, so it is what it is. But I wanted to be upfront about that. Thank you, Patreon. At the end, obviously, I'm going to give everything I buy from Patreon, I give away. So if you're interested in joining that community, we have a bustling Discord. It's right below in the caption. Anyway, what are these? I know what you're thinking. You're looking at these and you're going, wow, that looks oddly, suspiciously familiar. That's because it sort of is. This is the Option O Lagome Mini, and it came out before these did. And so there's been speculation that these are copycats, these are clones, these are redundant, whatever you might want to say. And I actually have a little spiel that I would like to give about that. So let's have our spiel. This is actually a very difficult, complex issue, so I'm going to take like maybe 3-4 minutes, and that's going to probably turn to 5 or 6, knowing me, discussing this issue because I think it's an important one to talk about because I've seen a lot of vitriolic responses to the release of these grinders, saying that they just completely ripped this off. Now, I am of a different persuasion. If this grinder looked identical, if it had the same exact burr set, if it had the same motor setup, if everything was the same about it, I would tend to agree that it would be a ripoff. And there are ripoffs of Option O frequently, because Option O is an incredible company. I think Hayden is awesome, doing incredible things for the community, makes super high quality grinders. I'm envious. I want a P100 really badly. They're difficult to come by. Anyway, so I understand where that's coming from, but I think that is a bit myopic to call this just a straight up ripoff, because they're introducing some things that are a little different. The design is not identical. Now you might say, yeah, they just put a coating on it. Well, let's look at any hand grinder you want to look at. Someone created the first hand grinder. I'm not sure who it is. Maybe someone in the comments can tell me who created the first hand grinder. But over time, they all look very much alike. They're all cylinders with a rotating handle, and most of them have that the handle connected to the cone burr. Now there are some deviations from that, like the SI and some others where maybe the collar is spinning, but the majority of them are using that handle and they're spinning a cone burr with a collar around it. And then most of them have a click system on the bottom. So are those all ripoffs of whoever came up with that first? No, because they're all giving you something different. So you might have a similar burr set, but maybe the body's different. Maybe the body's similar and the burr set's different. Maybe they are identical, which is problematic. But in this case, I don't see that as being the case. The Option O came out and there were some obvious issues that I noted in my first video right here where the burr set was stalling. Now, some of you said you didn't experience that. Some of you said you experienced it a lot. I had one person reach out and said theirs died in 3 months. So mine's been running fine. I actually have 2 of them. I was sent an updated one. They're both running fine. With the original power block, they were stalling. With the second one, not so much. But anyway, they came with a specific burr set, a 48mm burr set, and it's machined to their tolerances. Now, this one came out, and it's very similarly priced. This is not necessarily a cheap knockoff that you might see otherwise, that you might see floating around on like AliExpress or something that looks identical and is just made of cheap parts. This is made of pretty nice material. It's a fully aluminum body, very similar to this. It has a nice burr set. This one, in fact, it's identical to the Commandante C40, and I'll show you that right now. And this is the conical set for the SPTK38G. So as you see, if you have a Commandante C40 at home, it is identical. Okay, but let's not put all the blame on them. Here is the original burr set from Option O. It's taller but has the same base diameter. The cuts are nearly identical. So obviously, we need to just discuss briefly, most burr geometries nowadays, especially of grinders that are heralded as high clarity, tend to be one version or another of the Commandante C40 burr geometry. And it's because, well, that burr geometry does a great job at hitting high clarity. Now, some have done it a little better, some have done it a little worse, but the fact of the matter is they're very similar. So I actually brought my calipers today because something that's interesting is different people measure their burr sets differently. Obviously, Commandante declares 38 mils. This Obsidian burr from option O declares 48. So people measure differently. So what I'm going to do is the way that option O measures theirs is by the outer diameter of the collar. So it's 4799. I don't know if you can see that, but 4799. So I'm going to test the outer burr set here. So as you can see, this is a much smaller burr outside here. But you can't really see the edge of the burrs actually, so I can't really measure that because they're covered in this carrier. But these are 38s, and they are also measured by that outside area. But what you probably have noticed is the cones themselves are identical on the base. The height is just a smidge different, just a little bit. In fact, I'll tell you exactly what the difference is. So obviously, if you're wondering what the difference there is with height, you have this one's 18 millimeters tall. This one is 20. So the difference is minuscule on the cone. Now the collar is where the difference comes into play, but it's mostly the outer edge, which is odd because genuinely they're about the same thing going on. The cutting teeth on the inside, if you look closely, the crushing and cutting teeth on the inside are nearly identical. So both of them, with the exception of maybe a little taller on this one, a little taller on the cone, are pretty much the same burr set. So if we're going to lay blame on SPTK taking the Commandante burr, well, this does as well, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. I'm not going to argue the ethics of that. I just want to point out that deriding this machine as a ripoff is probably a little myopic. Things need to progress, and the only way that can happen is by minor variations off of something that's been made. There's very few things that are original. Even this is just a motorized hand grinder. What is it? Grind Buddy was making motors for the Commandante years ago, and then you have Mad Cat making motors for the Commandante, and then a natural evolution is to make a stand-up hand grinder that's motorized. That's really all this is. So, who's to say? Anyway, I think that's probably all I really want to say because I think this gets pretty convoluted with ethics, and I'm not sitting here trying to be, Mr. Ethical Genius or anything, but I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's a little unfair because this happens so often in every industry. There are always going to be minor evolutions, minor variations from products that are already out, and that's how you make change. That's how you build into things that might be better. Because surely no grinder on the market is perfect. This isn't perfect. There needs to be evolutions to it. There needs to be variations to it, and this is a step towards making a variation. Now, whether it's better or not, is up to you. I'm gonna discuss similarities and differences, but anyway, I think, like I said, that's about it. That's all I'm going to say about that. Now let's actually move in to the grinders themselves. So first of all, of course, you have that Commandante style burr inside of our option O. Now it's 7 spokes. It gives you really nice quality coffees. I really enjoy the coffee that comes from it. Now I've measured the RPM of this. This runs at around 220, 230 RPM. We're going to measure the RPM of this, and we're going to see where that sits us. So of course I'm going to pull out my tachometer. I'm going to take it. You got to be surgically precise. Aha, gotcha, sucker. Oh, I put it upside down. The sticky part's on my thumb. Gotcha this time for real, sucker. All right. So we got that on the spoke. Now I'm going to plug it in with the massively obnoxious cord adapter they give you. But same with option O. They're both big old adapters. All right. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to hit test. We're at 136.8. 138. All right. That's actually really nice, 138. So it's about 100 RPM slower than the Lagome Mini. And as I've said in earlier videos, the general rule of thumb, in my opinion, in my experience, lower RPM with conical burrs is better. And I think that's why you're getting such high clarity from hand grinders. Now, I've done a ton of tasting with these. I've had my SPTK38, at least one iteration, since maybe March. So maybe, so like almost 3 months, 2.5 months. Maybe I had it in February, I can't remember. But I've had it for at least 2 to 3 months. And I've been brewing with it a lot, and I've pitted against the Comandante a lot. And I get very, very similar cups with no effort, which is fantastic. So it's truly doing what I think it's trying to do, which is kind of replicate a C40. Now, with this newer one, I have been doing everything I can to stall it, and I have great news. It does not stall easily. The only way I was able to completely stall this grinder is if I did static loads. So I start with the beans inside and then start it, and on the finest grind setting, and only after I did 3 or 4 in a row, on like the 4th or the 5th in a row, is when I was able to stall it. So I'm going to replace this. All right, so I'm going to put this back. I'm going to go all the way to where the burr touches, which is here on mine. Where am I? I'm right here. Oh, right at 0 is where the burrs lock. So I'm going to come just off lock, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to load it so that you can see. I'm going to load it with super lightly roasted coffee. This is from Nomad. It's a Rwanda Gahahe. Very, very, very lightly roasted filter coffee. All right, I'm just going to fill it with about that. I'm not sure how much that is, whatever. I'm going to start it with it cold. So we don't have the burrs already in motion, which that's typically what you would want to do to avoid stalling, but just to kind of see what happens, I'm just going to hit go. Oh, it smells good. So this is a place where I have found stalling, is if you stop mid-grind and then restart. See, there you go. Stalled. But who in their right mind stops mid-grind? This is a single dosing grinder. You want to grind the whole way. Let's see if we can get it to start back up. Normally when this happens, you have to coarsen it. Because what happens is it's grinding, and so there are fractures of it that are really congesting the burr set. Sometimes you can get it. I don't think I'm going to, so I'm just going to coarsen it a lot. And there we go. So, not bad though. Like that stalling is expected. That's expected. You should not be stopping your grinding midway, but it does stall if you stop midway on really fine settings. Something while I'm speaking of fine settings I want to point out is they have an alternative burr set that they give you, which is, I think, is really, really freaking cool. So, I always struggle on taking these things out, so I'm just going to do this. Whoop. Just springs come out as well when you dump it upside down. All right, so here is an alternative burr set they give you. It's 6 spokes, and it's more geared towards espresso. Sorry, it's a little dirty. Obviously, I've been using the ish out of these in order to give you a good opinion. So that is the alternate burr that they give you. It is, yeah, this I would not recommend necessarily for filter unless you like more traditional style coffees. It's going to mute out a lot of that acidity. It has a faster feed rate. So honestly, if you do really lightly roasted coffees, I probably just would never use this one and only really use the Comandante style burr. And the reason is because it'll have a slower feed rate, a lot less chances of stalling, and a lot less fines production. Now I'm going to just run them at espresso fine setting. I'm going to have them both cold, and we're going to run them both yeah, we're going to just load the beans 15 grams, let them both run, see how long they both take. This is a rough estimation of particle size going head to head. And honestly, they're being run off the same outlet. I don't know if that's going to affect how much power they're able to draw, but we're about to see. So let me weigh out 15 grams each. Whoops, that's way more than, oh, there it is. And 15 grams for this one. What a beauty. $15 grams, load it, cap it, and then here we go on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. So right off the bat, this one seems a little stalled. It's like stalling a bit. All right, so this one's done. As you see, there's more coming out. There are little wings on the bottom that keep pushing grounds out. So what they give you as an option to add to your to it is one of these bad boys. Just kind of plop it on. Let's see, what's the easiest way to pop this on? I guess it is this way. Just plop it on like that. Then you have bellows like from a DF64. I think I grabbed the wrong bellows at home. Yeah, this one's the actual one from the DF64. But anyway, just kind of bellow it like so. There we go. So yeah, there that is. So this one's done. This one's still trying to make it through. So we're going to just coarsen it, give it a little help. There we go. We're going to keep coarsening it, give it more help. There we go. And there it goes. All right, so we have kind of on the coarser side of espresso here. And then on here, well, we did just coarsen it a ton, but there's filter. Let's get to the very bottom where the fine stuff is. There we go. So down here is where we have the finer stuff, coarser side of espresso right there. So the Option O is still, sort of, it's still stalling, which is not ideal. And it could be, again, it could be because I'm running them from both the same power strip. I am curious if maybe just the adapter is an issue. I'm going to try it with this adapter and go one more time. And we're going to go just once more. I'm just going to dump some beans in. We're going to go just off touch again. So right about here, I'm just going to dump some beans in and we're going to see what happens with that from a cold start. Let's see it and... well, it's seeming to do a little bit better here. Yeah, it's doing a little bit better here. I'm wondering if maybe just the adapter is a little bit better for the SP. Because now we don't have any stalling, and we're at the same grind setting essentially as we were earlier with no stalling. All right. Cool. I'm going to go and just stop that because we're done with that portion. Okay, cool. So that just, that not necessarily, well, I guess stalling is not ideal. And this one, they both stall. That is kind of the thing here. If you're using light enough coffee, they both do stall at super fine espresso or even coarser espresso as we just saw. And if you're using it for multiple day, they can stall. It's still going to be an issue unless you're using more medium roasted coffees or if you're doing pour overs, fantastic for that. But again, like I said, these, it could have been a power issue because I had them both plugged into the same part. I don't get as much stalling as that Lagome just did at home, so it could be that could be an issue. But the same can be said about this. I don't really get stalling at home either with this. So anyway, that's a great leg up on both. As far as flavor profile coming out of the cup, genuinely, they're both very similar. This has that 2 extra millimeters, the Lagome does, which might give you a little bit more extra cutting time as the bean's riding down, or I guess I should say crushing near at the beginning. So like 2 more millimeters of crush time before it starts to really cut as it goes down that burr. So, but the distance between the collar and the base of the burr is the same. So the geometry is almost identical. So you're getting similar situations, but this is at a lower RPM, which is actually my preference. But I actually have a fix. I prefer the aesthetic and the build of the Lagome Mini, and I actually have a little speed controller that you can route into either one of these and control the speed. I got this from Madcap, who makes the motor for the Comandante, which I did a video of right above. But essentially, all you got to do here, whoops, I turned it off. It was on. Is you just turn this knob. Look how slow I get that. Look at that. So slow. You don't even know how slow. That's actually moving. That's me on a track when I'm exercising. That's Usain Bolt. Me, Usain Bolt. Me. Anyway, so you can make it happen with router controllers and different things. This one is just really nice because it was made for me. I didn't have to mess around. But yeah, so I do prefer slower RPM, and some of the double blind tastings I've done, I have chosen this one more often than the Lagome Mini, but they are frankly pretty similar. I think perhaps it's even mental for me that I like slower RPM with these because it is pretty minuscule. But yeah, that's about it. You saw the grinding. I'm not going to sit here and, taste filter and espresso and go on and on about it because they're pretty similar. But this one's going to give you perhaps a little less potential of stalling because it has the same power motor. And the burrs are a smidge smaller. Actually, we found out that's not actually that true. It just has a slower RPM, about 2 millimeters shorter burr. So if you're looking between these two, obviously the Optiono is a more established brand. So if you're wanting to ensure you're buying from an established company, there you go. 58 Espresso is quite new, but I do think they did a really good job with this. And I do think it is a first step in the evolution of this style of grinder, which is an affordable, motorized hand grinder. That's essentially what it is. And it's just going to continue to pop up as more and more people see these machines, try them out, and see that you can build them for cheap enough that people can use them. Just know that these are not... The motors are not built for them to be used like a lot. There's not really ways for heat to dissipate, so you don't want to use it back to back to back to back. So just kind of keep that in mind. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. If you're interested in having a chance at winning some of these, check out my Patreon below. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment if you actually liked it, if you want to comment. Hit the subscribe with the notification. All that stuff kind of helps. But anyway, I'm excited to keep bringing to you more and more of these types of reviews of educational videos, different things. Love to hear from you, so just make sure you drop a comment if you have something to say. I will be reading all of them. I respond to as many as I can. Anyway, thank you so much. I hope you brew something tasty today, and cheers.